minutes to go before we start this webinar, this town hall on our Universal Healthcare Initiative, I-1362. Please state your name and where you're from in the chat. If you have any questions throughout the event, please use the Q&A mode. Your questions will get lost in the regular chat. So if you really want a question answered, put it in the Q&A and we will get back to it as soon as we're able to. We're going to go through things pretty straight on. At the end, we will have time to answer all of those questions. So don't feel ignored if we don't answer right away. We do plan on answering those at the end. So please, again, put your name and where you're from in the chat. Welcome, Karen. It's good seeing you here tonight. Karen's from Edmonds. Who else we got out there? Don't be shy, y'all. I know there's more of ya. Linda Brewster. Hi, Linda, from Port Townsend. Welcome, welcome. Kim's here from Renton. Ooh, Tiffany from Ephrata. Wow. Woo! Welcome, Tiffany. Welcome.
Hey, Tiffany! Woo! She's a petition hostess. Yeah.
Welcome. We'll be getting started here in just a minute. From Oak Harbor, we have, now they're coming in pretty quick. I can't keep up.
Did you see someone was from Mordor?
Mordor? Where?
The Lord of the Rings thing.
Oh.
Linda,
it is that hot right now. It is.
Mordor. Yeah, it is. But yeah. Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of a really hot weekend to join in. You're going to get a lot of great information and learn how we're going to win this in Washington State and start that domino effect to make it for every single person in the United States of America, right? 105 in Marble Mount right now. Woo! That's pretty hot. All right, it is 7 o'clock. I'm sure we're all getting ready to get going. I want to, we all want to thank you all again for being here with us. Don't forget, please use the chat to introduce yourself. You can make comments in there, but if you have an actual question, please use the Q&A section in our Zoom, or else it will get lost. So please use Q&A and we will answer at the end of our presentation. We left a good chunk of time to be able to walk anybody through any possible further questions that you don't get from this. So welcome everybody for joining us tonight. We are all very excited to share with you information about our initiative 1362. Thank you all of our presenters tonight, and especially to our guest speaker, Senator Bob Hasagawa. We would not be as far as we are without his support and encouragement through the legislative process, along with the support of Senator and board member Marilyn Chase. You'll hear from both of them a little later in the evening. I'd like to introduce you to some of our town hall speakers tonight, which includes whole Washington volunteers. Leah Perkle, raise your hand, Leah. Amelia Escobar is not here yet, but hopefully she will be. Lana Bostic, she is an RN and a volunteer with Whole Washington. You raising your hand, Lana? And we also got Whole Washington board members, Catherine Lewandowski. She, a couple of RNs here in a row, Catherine Lewandowski and Mariana Everson. And then Courtney Love. They're all part of the board, and we're so happy to have y'all with us tonight. We would like to take a few minutes to ask for your support. We have just recently rolled out our initiative campaign for I-1362, and we are currently in the signature gathering phase. Please remember that we are a grassroots organization of activists who are passionately fighting for your benefit. in order for us to be successful in this campaign, it's going to take an infusion of hard-earned cash. We have no billionaires amongst us, but it has been proven if we all do a little, we can all achieve amazing accomplishments. We need to do all that we can to help our activists be successful. So we are asking you up front to help us as much as you can safely afford to. We have a lot of needs for advertising and signature gathering that just can't be accomplished without capital, without you. But along with your money, we need volunteers. We need your sweat equity. This campaign will be won through people power, people who have had enough, people who are determined to get the job done, people who want to be a part of a winning campaign. Please give us your time and energy. And if you lack that, a generous donation to help the activists out there who are doing it for you and all of the other people they do not know, but whom we know all have common needs. So now, without further ado, and while I bring up the slideshow, I'd like to introduce Leah Perkle, a whole Washington volunteer from Vancouver, Washington, to start our discussion about Initiative 1362, an act to develop the whole Washington Healthcare Trust.
Thank you, everyone for being here.
1 second, sorry. The heat's making a little bit slow. I apologize.
Yeah, you can talk while it's loading. It's okay.
Thank you. I-1362, what, how, and why? What is Whole Washington Health Trust? The Whole Washington Health Trust, it would be the first statewide public financed, not-for-profit healthcare system in the US. Instead of private insurance companies and multiple programs, one government guaranteed trust would pay the healthcare expense of Washington state residents. This bill was written by citizens, for citizens, free from influence of corporate and special interest. The ultimate and urgent goal is comprehensive healthcare from cradle to grave, delivered to all. This trust would be governed by a board of trustees appointed by the governor and 3 advisory committees. Section 104, the Board of Trustees. Number 1, the trust must be governed by a board of trustees consisting of 9 members with expertise in healthcare, financing, and delivery of representing Washington citizens, business, labor, and health professions. They would be paid a salary for their role on the board. 3 advisory committees would be established by the board. Finance committee. So it'd be the finance committee recommends specific details for major budget and appropriate taxes and other funding legislation to conduct the operation of the trust. Second would be the provider committee. This would consist of members with board experience in and knowledge of healthcare delivery, research, and policy, as well as public and private funding of healthcare services. They shall make recommendations on the board to the board. Issues related to scope of covered benefits, quality improvement, continuity of the care, resources utilization, and other issues as requested by the board. Third, there'd be a citizens committee. Shall hold public hearings or priorities for the inclusion in the set of health services, survey public satisfaction, investigate complaints, and identify and report on healthcare access and other priority issues for residents. Do we have Amelia here?
No.
Okay. So what would it cover? I-1362, consider the following essentials: inpatient, outpatient care, 24-hour emergency service, Prescription drugs, maximum $250 a year deductible on brand name prescriptions without a generic equivalent. Medical devices and biological products, mental health and substance abuse treatment, reproductive care, maternity, newborn, and pediatric care, rehabilitation care, occupational and physical therapy, palliative and end-of-life care, dental, audiology, vision, acupuncture, chiropractic care, sun massage, and other healing therapies.
Next
Okay. Section 110, pharmaceutical, medical equipment, and biologicals. When consistent with federal law, the prices to be paid for covered pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, including biological products, and medically necessary assistive equipment shall be negotiated annually by the board for all residents and eligible non-residents enrolled in the trust. This section means that the board would enter into negotiations with pharmaceutical companies and other medical supply companies. In both our economic studies conducted by Dr. Gerald Friedman, he is confident that, like the VA health system, which currently covers about 9 million people, our state with about 7 million residents could expect to easily negotiate cost reductions averaging to up to 40% for the pharmaceuticals, medical equipment, and biologicals. How does the ACA define essential health care benefits? Section 102, definition, essentials, definition. Essential health benefits benchmark plan means that a set of benefits that an issuer must include in a non-grandfathered plan offered in the individual small group market in Washington State as defined in Section 1302 of the Affordable Care Act. In general, the Secretary shall define the essential that such benefits shall include at least the following general categories and the items and services covered with the categories: ambulatory patient service, emergency service, hospitalization, maternity and newborn care, mental health and substance use disorder services, including behavioral health treatment, prescription drug, rehabilitative services and devices, laboratory services, preventative and wellness services, and chronic disease management, pediatric services, including oral and vision care, and to include other requirements listed. Next will be Catherine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I made it smaller instead of bigger. What slide are we on? Are we on 8 or 9?
9.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Leah. And thank you to all of you who are attending tonight. We very much appreciate your time and attention on such a hot Sunday evening. And hopefully our computers will hold out for us and not overheat. So how do we pay for it? That's the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. We have a total of 5 different funding mechanisms in I-1362. So let's quickly go over all of them. First, there's the health security assessment, AKA the employer payroll contribution. And that says that after an exemption, there's an employee payroll contribution that is a total of 10.5% of gross pay that your employer pays you. From that, employers can pass on to their employees 2% of that tax. Or if your employer chooses to, or your union negotiates with them, they can pay the entire 10.5% as a benefit of your employment. This payroll tax would replace what employers currently pay for health insurance benefits to for-profit health insurance companies. This currently can range from 12 to 20% or more, averaging about 18% of total payroll costs, depending on the size of the business. Next slide. And then there is the personal health assessment. And this is part of the previous funding mechanism. It states that after an exemption, the maximum amount an employer can deduct from your pay is 2% of your gross pay. So the health security assessment is a shared payroll tax between employers and employees. Okay, next slide, I think. So this one, here's a few examples. If you look at, if you make about $20,000, your employers would pay about $71 a month for your health care, and an employee would pay $17 a month. Whereas if you made $100,000 a year, the employers would pay $708 a month, and the employees would pay $167 a month. So now there is language in the bill for employers with less than 50 employees who may experience a hardship due to the payroll contribution. They may apply for a hardship waiver or reduction of this assessment, and the board is authorized to establish rules and procedures governing all aspects of that. So the board would be responsible for that. Next slide. Okay, on to our third funding mechanism, the self-employment contribution for sole proprietorships. So this says that after an exemption, and I believe the exemption is like $15,000. The self-employment contribution is 2% of adjusted net earnings. Well, it's a formula of 15%, $15,000. So to calculate the exemption, you would multiply 25% by the amount of the income. So if a person's income was $55,000, that would be $13,750. And then you would subtract that from $15,000, which would leave a credit of $1,250. You then take that off $55,000 and multiply the difference by 2%, which would be about $1,075 a year or $89 a month. And after $60,000, there's really no discount at all. You would just pay 2% of the $60,000, which would be about $1,200 a year or $100 a month. Because honestly, we wouldn't want to put any accountants out of business. I'm sure that it's way more complicated than that. It's just a matter of fairness. We have to put some complication in there. Anyway, next slide. So, okay, on to the funding mechanism number 4, the monthly premium. So everyone over the age of 19 and in a household earning over 200% of the federal poverty level will contribute a monthly premium if they enroll in the whole Washington Health Plan. And here are some examples of what that would look like. Although for our economic study, the maximum monthly premium was capped at $134 a month, which was at the time the current Medicare monthly premium for persons on Medicare. This flexible revenue source allows the whole Washington Health Trust to fully operate and fund healthcare services. It's important to note that the monthly premium can be adjusted as needed under the direction of the Board of Trustees, and the board is obligated to make the rate as low as possible. In a best case scenario, the monthly premium can even go away, but it would always be there. It could be restored if we needed it. Okay, next slide. So here's some of the examples of what those monthly premiums might look like. So if a person was 200 to 233% of the, or a household was 233% of the federal poverty level, every person over 19 would pay $34 a month because everybody under 19 doesn't pay a premium, okay, 18 and below. If a family is over 300% of the federal poverty level, then it would be about $134 a month. And the bill says it can't be more than $200 a month. Okay, next slide. So the investment profit contribution or the capital gains tax. This is for people who make their income selling stocks. So after an exemption, there is an 8.5% tax contribution that will be assessed on net long-term capital gains. If the long-term capital gains is over $15,000, it will also not apply to any capital gains from residential home sales or from agricultural farm sales, family-owned agricultural farm sales, or from anyone's retirement accounts. Then there is no exception for long-term capital gains over $60,000. And if the long-term capital gains are less than $15,000, there's no tax at all. And so that pretty much takes out 95% of the population because there's only about 5% of the population that makes more than $15,000 in capital gains profits every year. So, okay, next slide. So there is an exemption. The exemption does not come into play until, or it doesn't come into play for any long-term capital gains above $60,000. But if it's less than that, then it's $15,000. And if the capital gains is $15,000 or less, there's no tax at all. And this would be assessed annually and submitted with your annual tax return, with the federal tax return. So here's an example from our website on how it might look. The next slide, okay. Mary is reporting a net capital gains of $45,000 after selling stocks. So first you would multiply 25% of the 45,000 and it is 11,250. You would subtract that from $15,000, which leaves 3,750 as the exemption amount. Take that off of the 45,000 and you would have to pay tax on $41,250. So that would equal $3,506 or so annually, okay? And there's more examples on our website for like $20,000. If you had $20,000 in taxable long-term capital gains, you would pay $850. If you had $100,000 in long-term capital gains, you would pay $8,500. So that was a lot, and I really appreciate your patience. I would like to introduce you to one of our other valued board members, Courtney Love, who has just been instrumental at helping to distribute our petitions all around the state, all around our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And it was quite the adventure and a beautiful trip to do so. We are inundated with questions of how Whole Washington Health Trust and Medicare engage. So how would it affect our seniors on Medicare? There are 3 system phases. The Whole Washington Health Trust Board is instructed to complete specific tasks to merge state and federal funds to win efficiencies on both the individual and systemic level. Phase 1, Medicare Advantage Plan application. When the Whole Washington Health Trust passes, the board will apply to enter into a commonly used contract with CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, to become a Medicare Advantage plan. In this phase, when you enroll in the Whole Washington Health Trust, Medicare will still fund your primary care, and the trust would act as a secondary or supplemental plan. Phase 2, Medicare Advantage Plan contract granted. When the Whole Washington Health Trust is granted, the Medicare Advantage Plan contract, both primary and supplemental care, will be funded by the Whole Washington Health Trust. In this phase, you will no longer need to pay Medicare premiums. Phase 3 is the passage of federal legislation. When the state-based Universal Healthcare Act is passed, introduced by U.S. Representative Ro Khanna, federal funds will flow directly into the Whole Washington Health Trust. This will make the system much simpler behind the scenes, but will not impact the individual experience in this phase. Basically, all of your Medicare funding will flow directly into the trust, and the trust will administer all Medicare benefits, but you won't notice any difference in your experience. The Whole Washington Health Trust is a big win for Medicare recipients. Your benefits expand to include medical, vision, dental, audiology, and prescriptions. Copays and deductibles are eliminated. Prescriptions are never more than $250 per person per year for those earning 200% over 200% of the federal poverty line. The monthly premium is never more than $200 per person per month for those earning over 200% of the federal poverty line. No dual eligibility loophole that requires you to reduce your income. No provider networks, or rather, as I like to say, everybody's in network, and no shopping for complicated plans. It will be the most cost-effective and comprehensive supplemental plan available on the market for our seniors. Slide 19. The board decided that because of the changes to our funding mechanisms and the changes in the economy over the last 3 years, to pursue an updated economic study. We are still digesting all of the information, but these are some of the current numbers from our most recent economic study from Dr. Gerald Friedman. We already pay for a large number of our citizens through our taxes already for healthcare. Between government employees, Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, Indian Health Services, and a number of other smaller governmental funds, in order to cover everyone else, we would need to come up with an additional $20,487,000,000. So after his recent study of I-1362, we found out that, oops, we have too much funding included in the bill. Big happy surprise. So it looks like we won't need the monthly premium. We won't need the 2% of the employee's payroll tax contribution, or we could lower the tax rate from 10.5% to a much smaller number and still have enough funding to accomplish this. So what actually happens will be determined by the recommendations from the Board of Trustees as advised by the Finance Committee. So we have options and they're all good. And that is a lot of information, but we still have more to cover. So I thank you for hanging in there. And I would like to hand it over to Lana Bostic, one of our whole Washington volunteers, who will talk a little bit more about why we need I-1362, especially after our elected officials recently passed Senate Bill 5399, a commission bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Why do we need an initiative when we have 5399? Our elected officials understand that the people want universal single-payer health care. They understand that a plan like the Whole Washington Health Care Trust saves the most money while covering everyone in Washington. And so they did pass a bill this last session, creating a commission to continue to study exactly how we can implement universal health care in Washington. Here is the language from recent legislation just passed in our Washington State Legislature just this past year that creates a commission. 5399 is a very different effort and initiative than our I-1362. I-1362 and Senate Bill 5204 take the Universal Healthcare Advisory Work Group on their word that option A is the best model for moving forward. Where 5399 contains language that gives the commission the ability to not implement a single payer system, that language only benefits the insurance industry. Section 1.1 states, while a unified healthcare financing system can provide universal coverage, increase access to care, decrease costs, and improve quality, implementing such a system in the state is dependent on foundational, legal, financial, and pragmatic changes from the federal government. Also in 5399, in section 1.2, that the commission will establish the preliminary infrastructure to create a universal health system, including a unified financing system that controls healthcare spending so that the system is affordable to the state employers and individuals, only once the necessary federal authorities have been realized. In I-1362 gives the commission the teeth they need to implement the intent of 5399 without waiting for federal legislation. Why do we need an initiative when we have 5399? 5399 says in section 7C, an inventory of the key design elements of a universal healthcare system, including 1, a unified financing system, including but not limited to a single payer financing system. Our goal needs to be to move as quickly as possible to a single payer financing system. This language is weak and therefore allows the legislature to maintain a multi-payer system. Such a system is a proven failure and only serves to benefit the health insurance industry and maintain a stranglehold on our healthcare dollars. Section 7G states the commission will provide recommendations for the creation of a finance committee to develop a financially feasible model to implement universal health care coverage using state and federal funds. This has already been completed with all of the 4 years of work that went into the development and refinement of I-1600, leading to Senate Bill 5222 and further refined in Senate Bill 5204, now fully embodied in I-1362. This section is a duplication of efforts already completed for the good of the people. Participant cost sharing if appropriate. The language should be absolutely not be included. Cost sharing measures are proven to discourage citizens from obtaining needed care. There should be no barriers to persons seeking care when they feel they need it. Ideas like this are introduced because legislatures and health insurance executives feel that people need to have some skin in the game to encourage appropriate use of their insurance. but it has led to much more than that. They want your whole right leg and the ability to place your firstborn child into indentured servitude. I'm being facetious to make a point. Cost sharing measures are there only to increase profits to the insurance companies and discourage patients from seeking early care. Subject to sufficient existing agency authority, state agencies may implement specific elements of any report issued under this section. This section shall not be construed to authorize the Commission to implement a universal healthcare system through a unified financing system until there's a further action by the legislature and the government. 5399 has no power to implement any single payer system in Washington state without passing it through the legislature again. And a single payer system has been proven through all the work at the Universal Healthcare Advisory Work Group to save the most money and cover everyone. It is option A, and I-1362 is the closest we can get to option A with clear language on how to best to transition completely to option A in a reasonable period of time. Our elected representatives understand that Senate Bill 5204 and I-1362 is a direct attack on the corporate entities who donate large dollars to their campaigns. Our elected representatives are trying to please you, their voters, and also their corporate donors. This is like mixing oil and water. It can't be done, at least not for very long. 5399 authorizes more incremental investigation of further options. We want option A now. 5399 gives our state legislature the ability to postpone implementing a universal healthcare system until federal waivers are obtained. We need it now, and we needed it yesterday. We needed it 2 years ago. We especially needed it during COVID. 5399 has language that allows them to maintain a multi-payer system, which is a proven failure and only serves to benefit the health insurance industry and maintaining its stranglehold on our healthcare dollars. We want them out. We're no longer interested in what they are selling us. And ultimately, 5399 has no ability to institute any recommendations without those recommendations being passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. They have not been willing to provide us with this in the past, and they won't do it in the future unless we demand it. I-1362 is how we demand it, through the enforceable power of our state constitution. They won't be able to ignore us any longer. I-1362 will give the Commission the teeth that they need to fully implement the intent of 5399. Our elected officials passed 5399 because they know it saves the most money and gives our residents health care. They know that the people want this, and our legislatures want to look like they are trying to climb an insurmountable hill. In I-1362 is the path to accomplish the goals of 5399. Their work has already been done. Thank you so much. And I would like to introduce another of our whole Washington volunteers, Mary Anna Everson, our whole Washington board chair.
Thank you so much, Lana. That was great. So we know that our current healthcare system is completely unsustainable. Big pharma, highly paid hospital CEOs have extracted enormous amounts of wealth from us, from the American people, and we can't afford it any longer. We can't do this anymore. We know now. More people know now than ever that we can't wait for everyone to be covered for healthcare, and we can't afford to wait for our federal government to rescue us. So I-1362 offers us fiscal sustainability. The whole Washington Health Trust will save the state of Washington an estimated $5 to $9 billion each year, billion with a B. Employers and people spend too much time trying to figure out which plan is best for them. The 8.5 payroll tax imposes us with less than what employers pay now to offer benefits, and could possibly become lower. Courtney talked about that. We could even lower it. And companies want to move here or stay here, which will create more opportunities for everyone. I'm going to ad lib a little bit. Think about all the part-time employees that work at Safeway, Walmart, the Dollar Tree, all these big employers that pay okay, but not very much. But the part-time employees don't have health care. The part-time employees will have health care with this. Rising costs of healthcare are unsustainable and dragging down our economy. It's the most expensive thing we pay for in our country, and we deserve to pay less and get better care. Insurance and financial processing positions lost will be replaced by better opportunities to created in the healthcare sector, as more patients are now able to seek the care they need. So we have people that work in the offices, in the hospitals, and the doctor's offices, and they do pre-authorizations all day long, trying to get insurance companies to pay for things. They wouldn't need to do that horrible job anymore. They could go move on and do a different job if they want to stay in the healthcare field. We need nurses, we need doctors, we need nurse practitioners. So let's do that. In the current system, U.S. companies can't compete with foreign companies who don't have these high benefit costs affecting their bottom line. The money families save on healthcare can be reassigned to other segments of that family budget. And the money our state saves in the financing of healthcare can then be reassigned to other areas to improve our social safety nets. One thing I thought of is all the employees that work for the state, their healthcare costs will go down. The state will pay less for their benefits, and we can use that money to bump up our public health system that we know now was completely unprepared for what we went through. So I'm finished, but I am just so honored because right now I get to introduce our Senator Marilyn Chase, who's been super supporter, board member of Whole Washington. She kept us going after I-1600, and she showed us the way so many different ways. And she's a massive supporter. She helped put the first universal healthcare bill in Washington's legislature, and she's been a massive mentor for all of us at Whole Washington. And I would like to introduce Marilyn Chase. Thank you, Marilyn.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you. Unmute. Unmute. Can somebody unmute her?
There, I think I got it. I think I got it. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Senator Bob Hasagawa, who has served in the state legislature for over 16 years, first in the House and then in the Senate. He holds a master's of public administration from the Evans School at the UW and a BA from Antioch University in labor relations, organization, and social change. He has two of the most beautiful daughters in the world and two of the most beautiful granddaughters in the world. He is a family man. He's also a champion of several public policy issues we all care about. And in his capacity as Majority Caucus Chair of the Senate Democrats, he's been an immense help to us. He was the prime sponsor of our bill last year, Senate Bill 5204, and he provided leadership for Whole Washington single-payer health care for all in Olympia. But if I tried, I would be remiss if I only tried to claim his expertise in health care for everyone. Bob is our senatorial champion in establishing a state bank that would save the taxpayers over $2 billion that currently gets sent to Wall Street for interest payments for debt financing in our state. $2 billion would go a long way to providing the necessary social services that justice demands for our people. Bob is also a hero in the housing industry to get our people out of tents and into housing. And he prioritizes the need for infrastructure investment so our bridges don't fall down. And he is with us today to talk about one of his favorite topics and enjoying the stellar panel in a presentation of healthcare for everyone. It is my great honor to present my friend Bob Hasagawa to regale us with the story of healthcare in the state Senate. Please welcome Senator Bob Hasagawa.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's so great to see you and all of my friends here wearing their red hats. But I have to say, I really miss you in the Senate there. You were one of a kind and a very true ally and friend when you were in the Senate and we served together. And I really miss your companionship there.
Thank you.
So, what I thought I would do is, people will probably have questions about the details of the plan, and I'm not an expert, as Senator Chase pointed out, on healthcare policy per se. I can tell you that why I'm so motivated, though, to see universal healthcare, and hopefully that will motivate you to want to get out there and get enough signatures so we can get this darn thing on the ballot and start leading the country in a way that it should go. So my history is I used to negotiate labor agreements. I was a rank and file member of the Teamsters Union, got elected as a reformer to lead Teamsters Local 174, which is like the largest trucking local union in the Pacific Northwest. So I was responsible for negotiating a lot of contracts. And during the 90s, you'll remember, well, it actually started way back in the 80s, but healthcare costs were just going through the roof. Most labor negotiations were about negotiating healthcare benefits, and wages were a secondary issue to the healthcare benefits. That's just how important workers feel healthcare benefits are. So with the inflationary rate as high as it was, there was very little money left over after we were able to maintain our benefit levels. Very little left over to actually go into the wage package. So I as a union negotiator, from a labor perspective, it was crucial that we deal with this issue, in my perspective. So once I got elected, I got elected to head the Teamsters Union in late 1991. And you know that Hillary kind of gave this push for universal health care in 93, which like totally backfired, and she backpedaled off of it so quick, I think she probably was falling down over herself in that backpedal. So we suffered irreparable damage from that failed effort. I would say her intentions were probably good, even though it was probably more politically motivated than anything, because it is an issue that all Americans, or everybody in the United States, wants to have healthcare coverage. So through the 90s, in fighting for improved wages and benefits, we ended up seeing a lot of our money directed towards the cost of increasing healthcare. So fast forward to 2004, when I won my election to the House. One of the first things I did was try and push for universal health care coverage as a workers' priority issue. Even back then, the Senate decided, well, I shouldn't get too much into the details of that. Let me just say, the legislature put together a blue ribbon task force on healthcare and trying to come up with a universal coverage plan. But in retrospect, that was just more of a mollification rather than an actual sincere effort to try and come to a solution. So we've had studies after studies. This 5399 that recently passed is just the most recent iteration. And that comes on the heels of another study that was just commissioned by the state through a budget proviso and released at the beginning of this session. So we're just studying this thing to death, and it's time to just take action. In, I guess it was 2020, was it just last year where we had the Democratic National Convention? And we were trying to put together, I was a delegate to the Democratic National Convention. I was also appointed to be on the platform committee. So one of the things that was a hard no on the platform committee, because the Biden people said there is no way in hell they're ever going to agree to it, is a platform position for universal health care. And so many of us ended up voting no on that platform, which actually otherwise had a lot of great stuff in it. But the number one priority in America of people living here is healthcare is a human right, and everybody deserves the best healthcare that our civilized society can provide. And I hate to make that sound elitist, because there's a lot of naturopathic healthcares that are just as legitimate. But I'm talking about everybody deserves decent healthcare. So the question is, do we consider healthcare a human right, or is our health just another profit center for Wall Street corporations? So we intend to take it out of that profit center ledger and put it back into the human rights ledger. But we can only do that if everybody on this call and everybody else around the state start getting those signatures to put this on the ballot. So, as I said, I'm not the expert in the details of healthcare policy. I just know what's the right thing to do, and I want to move forward. America has, it seems like, become a country that can't get out of its own way. We're so fearful of anything progressive that upsets the status quo, because the corporations love the status quo the way it is. We've got to push to change things. Senator Chase talked about a public bank. That is busting the status quo wide open. I mean, everything goes back to finance. So if we can recapture control over our own tax dollars, that's a true game changer. Well, healthcare is a true game changer if we can get it done. I talked with the Boeing lobbyists. This was, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years ago. Boeing used to have its own private session with legislators to say what their legislative agenda was going to be and that sort of thing. So I asked the question very innocently, it seems to me that Boeing, you provide the best healthcare coverage of most companies because you're unionized and you bargain it with the unions, but it's super expensive. So it seems to me that you could cut your healthcare costs by supporting a universal plan, which then socializes the cost of healthcare across every person and everybody in the state. And that would lower your costs. You wouldn't have to be paying those super high premiums per employee. And they just refuse to talk to it. It's more of a class issue than anything really, I think. But just to show how entrenched that they don't necessarily make decisions that's in their best fiscal interest. Well, Boeing has shown a lot of bad decisions recently, so maybe that just makes the point. But we have to get out there and hit the bricks and fight for universal health care. We can lead the way in the country and show the rest of the country that this truly is what the people are demanding. So it comes back to finances, as I said. Please donate to the campaign. And what is the name? If people want to write a check, what is the name they should make the check out to? Can somebody say that real quickly? Is it just Whole Washington? Write a check to Whole Washington and.
Yep, Whole Washington.
Okay, and it's probably, I would write a check, but if you want to go on the website, you can probably do that too. So I don't know what the address is. It's probably on the website. At any rate, the point is, we need money to get this done. So please ask your friends if they will just get a couple of signatures from registered voters and also help donate. And together, we can cross the finish line and provide true justice for every person within our state. So thank you for this time, and I appreciate you all's dedication to social justice and healthcare justice, especially. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
Bob.
time, Bob and Marilyn. We're
Woo!
gonna open it up to some questions here soon. So please stay if you're able to and chime in where you feel great to do so. And I just want to remind everybody in attendance, if you have a question, please put it in our Q&A spot. If you've asked a question in the chat, it's lost. So please bring that into the Q&A. And then if you guys like, I'll read off a question, and then whoever wants to answer, want to grab onto it? Does that sound good?
Sure.
Hey, can I answer a question that Bob had first?
Yes.
Yeah, he wanted to know what the address was if you write a check. So that address is P.O. Box 17500, Seattle, Washington 98127. So if you wanted to write us a check, P.O. Box 17500, Seattle, Washington 98127.
And yes, you can write it out
Thank
to
you.
Whole Washington.
Whole Washington. That's right.
Beautiful.
All right, let's go for the questions.
All right. So the first one in here tonight was would this cover abortions and aftercare?
I'll answer. Yes, well, it covers all reproductive care and any care that a person would need, and we consider anything like that something to be between a patient and their doctor. That's a personal decision.
Here's another one that's pretty quick. Does it cover naturopathic medicine?
I don't know if okay, one of the things, and I thought I tried to make it clear in the thing, is like, I do believe it does speak to naturopathic medicine in the ACA, right? And so you can't put, but, and yes, I do believe it does, because we have several naturopathic doctors who helped us to work on this, right? But one of the things you need to remember is that not everything specifically is actually in the bill, because this is a statutory law. And so what it actually covers would be left up to the board and the committees that are formed through the development of that, because you can't go and change the law every time there's a new form of therapy and ask it to be covered, so the law has to be broad enough to be able to cover new advances in technology, or even to also not cover things that maybe start to be proven that are not effective. You know what I mean? So, or where there might be therapies that are more effective than the old methods of doing stuff. So,
And I'd add that if you're a licensed provider, you're covered.
right.
Beautiful. Since we're on kind of the healthcare coverage, there's another one in here about, end of life care, death with dignity, hospice. Can you guys go further into that piece?
I'd say if there's coverage that exists now, the coverage would be maintained, because we have the same standards, the same minimum standards, and then we will exceed them. So everything that's covered by a plan now, that's not cosmetic in a medically unnecessary way, it's covered. So Medicaid, you wouldn't receive less than you are, and you would definitely receive more than you do.
Thank
Right.
you. From Jeff Lyles, does the gross pay just include money on the check, or does it include the benefits such as vacation and pensions?
Just your gross pay.
Just the group pay, Jeffrey. Thank you.
Mhm.
Chris Mason is asking, so section 101.3 says people can obtain coverage in excess of those under the trust. Section 101.6 says that the provider must accept a payment as a payment in full. These seem to be in conflict with each other. How can someone utilize their additional benefits that an employer may provide above and beyond the trust?
So that question means above and beyond essential health benefits. So what we say that the essential health benefits that we went through during the presentation, you know, going to the doctor, going to the hospital, ER, mental health, all the stuff. The first section that you quoted would be if you wanted something above and beyond that, like a facelift or, you know, whatever it is that you need, you know, a tummy tuck or something like that. That is not a essential to your life. That is like voluntary. So that's what that one means. And the second one, can you remind me, Rhonda, what his second, their second section 901?
101.6
Yeah,
that says provider must accept a payment as payment in full.
Yeah, so that means when the doctor gets paid from us, that you don't pay anything else. There's no copay. So that's exactly what that means. That they don't get to charge you more than what the trust pays them, and what the trust pays them is going to be more than they get paid now by Medicare. So they'll be happy with the amount that they get paid.
Yeah, so no hidden bills after the fact either.
Yeah, nothing like, okay, I don't think I'm going to get a bill, and then you get $10,000 bill. No, that's not going to happen. They accept the payment. That's payment in full. They can't come back and charge you anything else.
Beautiful.
And I would add that there will be a physicians committee or a providers committee in which providers of care will be able to participate in negotiating the reimbursement. They will have a place at the table.
Yes. So I like this next question because, you know, I like the answers here that I know you guys are all going to come up with. So how will whole Washington avoid the fate of the Medicare for All in California, where legislators caved to insurance lobby pressure? So how do we get around that?
Let me.
I told you this is going to be fun.
I say we get around it because we're doing an initiative. We're getting real signatures for real people in Washington who live here, vote here, and they know that they need health care, and their neighbor needs health care, and the grandma needs health care, and they just lost 2 uncles because they didn't have health care. So this is us, the people, doing what we know we need. And this initiative process that we have in Washington, we're so lucky to have, forces our legislature to pass this. They have to pass. We get the signatures, you guys, and they have to pass universal health care. So they can pass our bill the way it is, just like pass it through. Okay, we're voting on it, and then it just passes, right? Or they can put their own bill up next to this bill and put them both on the ballot. And which one do you think the people are going to vote for? Are they going to vote for the one where the insurance companies still make billions of damn dollars? No, they're going to vote for the one where they get the most coverage for the least amount of money. And we're going to show everybody that that's what it is. So yes, they're going to fight us. Insurance companies are going to come after us. Well, probably me personally, all of us. And we're ready. Okay, go for it. Expose me. I don't care. It's going to happen, and that's fine, because we're fighting for all of us. All of us, because it's not about me.
Right.
It's about all of us.
And can I just clarify a little bit too? The reason, the thing is that we have within our state constitution, and some people have said while collecting signatures, I don't think that we should be doing citizens initiatives. But you know what? A long time ago, when they wrote our state's constitution, there were some people on that committee that thought that that might be something that would be necessary. So we have the right to be able to enact initiatives that become law when our elected officials refuse to do that. So with this initiative to the legislature, if we get the signatures like boom, really fast, I think that's going to send a huge message. We can go in January and we can say, hey, look at all these signatures we got in 3 months, you know? And they would say, wow, the people really want this. And in my opinion, they would be very wise to just pass it, because now they're like, what can we do? They got to tell their donators, we couldn't do anything about it. They wanted it. What can we do? Anyway, so they can do that. They could pass it in January, next January, and that just speeds up the process. Unfortunately, I've been told that that probably won't happen. So with the initiative to the legislature, if they choose not to pass it, then it has to go to the people. And that would happen in November of 2022. And they can either just send that to the people, or they could put a competing bill. And then the people could vote to pass it or not. So we still have a big job ahead of us to take it to the legislature and hopefully try to make all of our elected officials heroes, and do it in January, and bada bing, bada boom, be done with it. Or we'll have to keep educating everybody and working hard and getting it on the ballot and getting out the vote in November of 2022. So.
Beautiful. Was somebody else wanting to jump in before I went to the next one? Because I know this is this is a fun one to talk about. Okay. All right.
Well, I do want, in regards to other states that have bills that are stymied, it often is tied to funding. And when it has to pass through a legislature, it is competing with the corrupting influence of money in politics. And we need to acknowledge that, because that is what every siloed issue is dealing with, is the corrupting influence of money in politics. So it's key. And a citizens initiative is the way around it. And we have the funding mechanisms in place. We have made space for ERISA. Like, we don't have the challenges that other bills have.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Here's another one from Jeff Lyles. How hard would it be to put to rest that truckloads of Canadians are coming across the border, and that the doctor's offices in Blaine and Bellingham are mostly filled with people from Canada and Canadian license plates, and they get an essential travel restriction removed so they can come to the US for healthcare? I don't have an answer for this one, so hopefully one of you guys do.
I feel like maybe wealthy Canadians travel down here for expediency, because cash makes it fast. Whereas poor, and even I think Rand Paul went to Canada for an eye procedure. I mean, he justifies it with like reputation, not expense. But Americans certainly save money by leaving the country for procedures, and in all directions. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it until we get our Medicare for all.
Yeah, I know many people who like go to Mexico for their gastric bypass or whatever, because, or their dental work, because they can't afford it here.
Right.
May I say something? As a panelist, I actually have a friend down here. He has insurance, but he is having to go down to Mexico to get his 3 implants, because for 3 down there it's 5,000. Here for 1 it's 5,000.
And with I-1600, I ran into quite a good number of Canadians, and they'd say, oh, I can't sign because I'm Canadian. And so I'd say, oh, could you be part of my unofficial survey? Have you ever come to the United States to receive healthcare? And they're like, no. I did find 2 people that do come down from Canada. One was a young gentleman with like, I don't know, he had a disease like cystic fibrosis. Like, anyway, he came down because there was a special procedure that could only be done in the United States. And the other one was a person who, even though he was Canadian, he worked in the United States. People, I think it's fake news. I think the problem is we have more people going to Canada, buying insulin, buying medications, because they can't afford it here. We have more, and we have, like Mariana said, we have more people going to Mexico for cheaper dental work. I've known, when I was in oncology, many people who went to Mexico for last ditch effort, or just oncology care because they couldn't get the care here, and that usually, in my opinion, has never led to good outcomes personally. But
thank you. Marcelo.
For
Oops, go ahead.
clarification, it was dental implants in Mexico that was quoted, because Leah just said implants.
Oh, right.
Oh, and then there was a
Dental implants for 3 in Mexico is 5,000 for 3. And in the US, it's for 1 dental implant, which my husband had several months ago, is $5,000.
3-for-1 deal down below, huh? All right, so Marcelo was asking where we can find this recording of this town hall. So you can find it on the Whole Washington Facebook page. It is being live streamed to there now and will be there after. And also to the Whole Washington YouTube channel. And then we are recording this and can send out otherwise as well, Marcelo. So you guys, please go share from those and have everybody watch and get involved. Aram, what percent of the way we are, what percentage of the way are we with signatures, and how much of the time is left for getting all the signatures?
I can answer. We just got started collecting signatures, and so we just got started, and we're just getting our feet rolling. But like people like Leah, who has 67 already filled petitions down in Vancouver, people are doing a lot. A lot of the being able to collect signatures, we do best at large events. So the events coming up in the next few months will be really helpful. We have until the end of December to collect all the signatures. And that is why we chose to do an initiative to the legislature. So because we knew we would need more time as an all volunteer group. And because of the effects of COVID and the effects of not having enough big events to go to, so.
And I would suggest we have county groups and in areas of less dense population, maybe regional or area groups. So where locals can work together to organize around your local events, scheduled and effective. So do engage with us and connect with those local groups.
Excellent. So Valerie is asking, how does Whole Washington get around the Medicare prescription donut hole? Who wants to answer that one?
So our trust, like Catherine was, or who was talking about? Oh, Leah was telling us, our trust would act as the supplemental plan to your Medicare. So right now, my mom pays $160 or so a month toward her Medicare. She can't have a supplemental plan because she has a pre-existing condition. How about that? So she pays the 20% that Medicare doesn't pay out of pocket. She has a small prescription plan that helps, like through her druggist, the pharmacy. They did like a little card for her, so she pays a little bit less than the 20%. So this would cover all of that, like everything that the Medicare doesn't pay for, this pays for. So when you go to the doctor and you have a copay, you have to pay 20%. If you go to the pharmacy and your prescription drugs, you have to pay for that or pay a copay for that. This would pay that. So Medicare would be your primary. This would be your secondary. And then if you're less than 200% of the federal poverty line, then the trust actually pays you back that $160 a month, so that you have more money in your pocket every month to, fix your car or buy groceries.
The other, I think, important thing is that once we become before the federal waivers are achieved and we become a Medicare Advantage plan, then we have all the benefits of any of the insurance companies. And so we would get all those Medicare dollars flowing into the trust, and we can add all of those additional benefits that the trust already covers, like covering all of our medications with only a $250 annual deductible if a person chooses to have a brand name when there's a generic version available. So that.
And then think about dental care, like your mom, my mom, everybody's dad. You get older and you need help with your dental care. So I know my mom goes without or, pays out of pocket $3,000 for one tooth. And that's not okay. That's not fine. And the hearing aids, who needs hearing aids? Most of the people who need hearing aids are retired or on Medicare, and Medicare doesn't pay for hearing aids. And then it's just wrong. So this would cover all of that stuff for them, and mostly with less cost than they were paying now.
I just found out last night Medicare doesn't pay for physical therapy. It was $50 a week for a patient of mine to get physical therapy, and they wanted to see him 3 times a week. He's like, I can't afford $150 a week. He was 80 some years, 78 years old,
Oh my gosh, that's not right.
Right, there's one down here that mentions Senator Hasagawa, so I thought I'd bring you in since you're hanging out with us still, Bob. Lori's asking, she was told that you did vote for SB 5399, and so she's wondering the reasoning behind that since we're showing the discrepancies here. Do you mind answering that?
Not at all. So I actually had to give that quite a bit of thought, though. But I ended up voting for it for a couple of different reasons. Number one is I'm not going to vote against something that has potential of advancing universal health care. It sort of took some of the impetus away from 5204, but on the other hand, 5204 wasn't going to pass anyway. We couldn't even get a hearing from the committee chair. So Senator Randall is a good person. I think she wants to do the right thing with all of this stuff. And so if it's necessary, but she's brand new, she doesn't have the history of all of the different studies and all of this stuff over the years, but it was her bill. And if she's controlling the dialogue here, I think we have a very solid ally going into the future on how we ultimately craft a final implementable program. So the other thing I have to worry about is, as the chair of the Senate Democratic Caucus, I only hold that chair because my colleagues voted for me, or at least a majority of them. So I'm cognizant of that fact, and I'm not here to, I have to be very cognizant of how I'm being perceived out there in the public, because many people perceive me as being the voice of the caucus, not just the voice of Senator Bob Hasagawa. So if I want to retain that chair, I have to be sure that I'm not burning bridges with my colleagues. You understand? So, but I do believe in Senator Randall. I think she's a fabulous senator, and I think this has the potential for advancing universal health care. So that's why I voted for it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you again for being with us tonight. It just means a lot to us and the support that you've been giving us. Lori also was asking, just question and this, I don't know if you'll know in particular, Senator, but is I-1362 identical to the Senate Bill 5204? She was asked this by one of the chairs of the Dems. So if you don't know, which I don't know, expect you to, I think one of our others can answer that one.
There were a couple of changes, and I know some of the changes were just into the timelines, because the dates would be different. And then there was a couple of changes, and I know I had asked for a couple of changes to improve the language for our Native Americans. So there were a couple of changes.
Thank you. So Walter is asking, wondering is the board elected in the elections, or is it chosen by the government and the legislature? So the commission board.
Boy, there you go. Now I have to remember. It's appointed by the governor, and I can't remember now because I'm getting them confused between the commission bill and this one. But I'd have to go back to be certain. But I I think.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's a
think
little bit of both, I think.
the caucus is like,
The governor appoints a certain number and the legislature appoints a certain number.
I think the legislature makes recommendations of who they want, and then the governor appoints, I believe. But that might be the commission. I could be wrong. So,
Excellent. We can get a clear answer for you, Walter, and get back to you on that for sure. Michael is asking, how will we counter the resistance that some unions, even public sector ones, to statewide healthcare plans, such like what's happening in New York right now?
that's a good question. How do we do that? I think it's going to take union members going to their union officials.
Courtney? Oh, sorry.
So some of it's addressed by how it's written. We dodge the things that certain labor groups object to, and it's tied to ERISA, which is, I believe it's employment, retirement, security. I'm sorry, someone else will know that entirety, but it's legal protections for multi-employer insurance plans. It's really exciting stuff. But we make space for it. Most of what we will be doing is just collecting contracts with different funding mechanisms, because this is all about money. We're just shifting where the money goes. We're not changing who approves you, like who does your diagnosis, right? So we won't ever cover the VA, Veterans Administration, and we won't ever cover active duty military. And we're making space for ERISA protected healthcare plans that are frequently found among unions, but not every union. And so we should be able to garner labor support, because what you legislate, you don't have to negotiate, as Sarah Nelson says. So one hopes that by making space for ERISA plans, we won't have the challenge that the New York Health Plan has. And that's the one that I think is the clearest example of organized labor pushback.
Beautiful. Marilyn.
I do. Thank you. I talk to a lot of labor people, and I think that Courtney was right. It's all about the money. You know, the businesses want to remain competitive in the international market, and there's a great brouhaha out there about American businesses are not competitive with their European counterparts because they have to pay all of the healthcare costs, and that makes them more expensive in the marketplace. So they're taking a very serious look at how can we, as Bob said earlier in his remarks, shift the cost of healthcare onto the public dollar and make our operations more competitive in the global marketplace. I think now is the time, when they're starting to take a look at this and understand global finance, that we will be, we may even end up not with so many unions as our allies, but the corporations and their bottom line. And then, of course, the unions and all of labor wants good health care. We can get good health care, but we need more allies. And certainly we welcome the corporations as our allies. If we can make them more competitive on the global marketplace, yes, we will do that. So it's all of us working together and trying to build our economy. Healthcare is a major cost for them. We have a solution for their cost.
Oh, yes, Marilyn. Thank you for that and that passion behind that too. Ah, beautiful. Okay, let's see. There's only a couple more questions left.
I think Brother Bob has something to say on that.
Oh, beautiful. Sorry, I missed that hand. I apologize, Bob.
No, that's okay. So yeah, just to give sort of how I would perceive, I don't speak on behalf of labor by any stretch, but if I were still in charge of the union, workers fought really hard to build those healthcare plans that they have now, and they are the finest anywhere. And they're super expensive. So you have to be cautious about going after those plans. When the ACA was passed, there was punitive penalties. It looked as if they were coming after the union plans, which was not right. So that created a huge backlash. But if it can be viewed as a cost savings and a dollar for dollar transfer of costs without punitive actions being taken and not losing the level of benefits, so there should be a marketplace springs up for supplemental benefits that the union may be able to then finance with some of its savings. So, the unions have a legitimate concern about losing the benefits because they've sacrificed wage increases over the years, as I talked about earlier. So were it not for the super high cost of the healthcare, they would otherwise have had those increases in their wages. And so by taking away the benefit without remuneration or recognition that those savings should go back into their wages, that was punitive. So we have to be cognizant of that.
Marilyn? Thank you, Bob.
That's just one. I appreciate the fleshing that out, Bob. That was good. I think that one of the other things that we need to keep in mind is that the healthcare is a cost of doing business. It is a tax deduction. It is an expense of doing business. So the corporation can deduct the expense of whatever they are paying for their labor. And we need to think about that. How does that work? They will lose their tax exemption because they're not going to be paying it. This is for businesses, not be paying it out. And ordinarily, it is part of the compensation of the workers. So should it go into the workers' pay package? Well, yeah, I think so, because it's part of their compensation. But no matter how it is put out there, it is still a tax exemption for the business. It is a cost of doing business. So we're not trying to put anybody out of business. We're not trying to take money away from workers. What we are trying to do is deliver health care to so many people who do not have it. And the people who are ending up in bankruptcy court because they can't afford to pay all of this. So it's a great project.
Thank you. Catherine, did you say you had something you wanted to put in this piece?
Oh no, sorry. I was trying to figure out how to message you to see. I think Roxanne had her hand up, and I didn't know if it was possible to be able to allow her to share information.
Yes, Roxanne, I'm gonna bring you in. Hopefully you're prepared to be on the spot once I find you here.
Oh, and while you're doing that, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Oz for helping us with all of the technical aspects of putting on this town hall tonight. We really appreciate it, and we couldn't have done it without you, because I give a really good shot in the arm, but technology, I'm drowning. Thank you, Oz.
I think Roxanne left. I don't see her anymore. Roxanne, if you're still here, please raise your hand. It'll pop up to the top, but I think she did, from what I can see, step out.
Oh,
but I've seen a ton of messages come through asking how you can volunteer, where you can sign. the petitions, or even how can I fill up petitions to help this make it happen. So one of the best ways to do is go to www.wholewashington.org. You can find on there, there's a map of where you can sign petitions or who to reach out to that's closest near you, and or sign up as a volunteer. We need you. For those who are going to be collecting signatures and want to give, and those who are unable to maybe gather signatures, but definitely want to give to those who are out there, again, go to www.wholewashington.org to the donate button. If you could, it's best to set up a reoccurring monthly donation that really helps us look into the future and make sure that we get all that we need out there on the ground to make sure we can be on the ballot if our legislature does not pass it in 2022. We want to thank every single one of our panelists today, and our volunteers. Special thanks to Senator Marilyn Chase and Senator Bob Hasagawa. You guys' time is very precious to us, and thank you again for all that you do. And yes, thank you, Oz, for making all the tech streaming happening. I'm Rhonda Walker. Thank you, Leah Perkle, Catherine Lewandowski, Courtney Love, Lana Bostick, Noe O has helped us in the background as well, Mariana Everson, again, Senator Marilyn Chase and Bob Hasagawa. Thank you for your time. Anybody else want to say anything before we go?
Keep up your good work.
Oh, thank you for all your work.
Stay cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
all so
Bye.
very much. Let's
Thank
do
you.
it.
Good night.
Thank you.